comics, there are two different types of comics. They can be confusing. We got comic books, and the comics in the newspaper. The Garfield and the Charlie Brown. Let's talk about that.
Friends are there
to help you get started, to give you a push on your way.
Comic books and newspaper comics. Newspaper comics are short comics, relatively only like 3 to 6 panels each. They tell funny stories, short funny stories. Comic books sometimes will tell funny stories, but also, they will tell interesting stories, like this one in the Cuphead comic book, Lights, Camera, Adversaries. So Cuphead and Mugman walk in the theater, and then they find, the Garrett, the Root Pack, them. And then, Cuphead gets mad because they're taller than him and they can't see. So then they throw popcorn at him, and he leaves, and he confronts him. So then he hits the door into the projection booth. So he goes in there, locks Cuphead up, throws him into the camera, and then at the theater starts projecting him. And then he's in the movie that they were going to watch. And then that's the story. But comics have really short stories, like this one. Odie's looking at Lyman, and Garfield's like, oh, poor Lyman, because Odie just drank out of the toilet. Like, it's a funny, short story. Another example is probably Peanuts. These tell longer comics than Garfield, sure, they're not as, big. But the short ones are like this one. So Sally's giving a report, and her teacher's like, what? And then she's like, oh, don't squirm, man, there's more to come. There was a comic series that did jump to making full-on books along with, full-on comic books, I guess, more like novels. There was a series that went on to making, novels other than just comics, which was, of course, the classic Big Nate. This was a series of newspaper comics, and then they made it into a Diary of a Kid book. So, this was one that was a newspaper comic, went to comic book, but still is a newspaper comic. Actually, it's not really a comic book, it's more like a novel with pictures, a lot of pictures. Like Diary of a Kid, those. These are supposed to be short, funny segments that you remember for the day. And you go, oh, you see the peanut strip? It was, Sally's writing about Washington's birthday. But when you read a comic book, it's like, oh, geez, I'm interested in this story. Let me get my trading cards and bubblegum. This is cool. It is cool. So basically, to sum it up, comics, they tell short stories, supposed to read, laugh at for a little, and then forget about them. Comic books tell longer stories that are formatted like a comic, but aren't a comic. I don't know, that's the best I can explain. Just leave.
Friends are there
to help you get started, to give you a push on your way.
Friends are there
to turn you around, get your feet on the ground for a brand new day.
to pick you up when you're down,
Help you swallow your pride when something inside's got to break on through to the other side.